Welcome to Bike Maintenance in your classroom with Waterford Sports Partnership, Altitude and also Bike Week. So a couple of things on these videos. The first thing I'm going to ask you a question is, what do you think you need to make sure you can maintain your bike? Quick question for you all, and when you see this slide, I'm going to ask your teacher to pause it and you can have a quick chat for 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Dave from Altitude, and today I want to do a little bit of bike maintenance, just some small basic stuff that you should do yourself at home. So some of the basic parts we would need would be some oil, a little mini Allen key set, the 2 little tire levers and a pump.
Hope you got a lot of those right. Now, first thing with your bikes, saddle height. What do you think is your ideal saddle height? Have a think. And with this, the teachers are going to pause and chat for 2 minutes.
So a quick guideline as to how to set the correct saddle height for yourself is you sit over the bike, and in theory you should touch the ground with the ball of your foot touching the floor, and that in turn will create a good pedaling action that will be efficient and won't have you getting tired too fast. And that's easily adjusted by just a little quick release lever on the seat, up and down, close the lever in. But if your saddle is too low that you're pedaling, or if your saddle is too low and you've got your 2 heels on the floor, your saddle is so low you get tired very fast. So all you want is to ball your foot on the floor, and that makes the pedaling action nice and efficient. So the tool that we had earlier would be a good way to adjust the saddle on the bikes that had the Allen key system. So Allen key into the little bolt in the collar, open up or down, whatever level you need, and give it a tighten. And that's the saddle adjusted on a bike with the Allen key system.
Simple. So now use the tools that you have as part of your bike maintenance pack. Go in pairs with your bikes, see if you can get the ideal saddle height, have a go. And with this fella, we're going to pause. How to use a bike pump. Really important that your tyres are pumped up properly, not just for your own safety, but it can also save you energy. So have a look at this video.
Now, so there's 2 types of valves on bikes. The first one I'm going to show you is called the Presta, which is actually the narrow valve. So I rest the bike against this unit, unthread the cap, and this is the narrow little valve, which works very well but can be delicate. So I can unthread this guy down. He cannot fall off, so once I unthread him down, this valve is now open. And what I've also done is I brought the valve up to the 12 o'clock position, which is always the easiest to work with, because then you don't have any reason to have the valve at a bad angle that can crease the valve or bend the head. So valve up at 12 o'clock, pointing back to the floor. It's now open. I'm now going to use the small opening on the pump, which will match that valve system, and I'll show you now. Push the valve up, or push the pump up over the valve, lock the lever, hold the back of the pump with a finger and pump. And try not to rock the pump over and back. If you rock the pump too much, you're rocking the valve over and back, and there's a tendency you could actually break the valve. So hold the pump with 1 strong finger, keep the pump nice and flat, level against the floor, and then pump away. When you're finished, flick the lever and give the pump a sharp tap down. Don't try and crowbar the pump off, or you'll bend this little valve. And when you're finished, close him back up. And a guideline for tyre pressure is you shouldn't really be able to make any impression with your thumb into a tyre. I can push my thumb into that, that's still a little bit soft. So that tyre could still take a bit more pressure. No real indent into the top of the tyre will show that the tyre is correctly pumped. So the second valve type is the wider one, which is seen on most of the mountain bikes and some hybrids, and it's the same as a car. So again, up to 12 o'clock, unthread the cap. This valve is a bit tougher than the Presta, so it does need to be, or it won't break off, there's nothing there, so it's a more solid assembly. But we still just push the pump up over the valve, close the lever, still support the pump as a good practice, and pump again. Again, when we're finished, flick the lever and one sharp tap downwards. There's nothing to twist closed on this valve. We just put the plastic little cover back on and we're finished.
Now, using all the bike pumps that we've given you in your classroom, pick a partner, grab a bike, get those tyres pumped up to the recommended pressure. Oil in your chain can save you from having an accident. So be careful, be gentle, watch this video.
Yeah. So we're going to use oil that we had set out earlier, and the easiest way to oil your chain is sit the bike upright, undo the cover off the oil, and the trick here is not to oil the cassette rings themselves. All we need to lubricate is actually the chain only. So a good trick that we use here is just down on the bottom part of the jockey wheels, down where the chain is down quite low, put the oil on and pedal backwards 4 or 5 revolutions, and that's enough oil for probably 3 weeks. And the trick with oiling a chain is only put on light amounts regular, as opposed to putting too much on, which then in turn creates a magnet effect, and all the dirt and grit of the road sticks to the chain and you create a black mess from having too much oil and then dirt on top of oil. So best to do it more often with lighter amounts of oil at a regular interval than putting 6 months on in one go.
Now it's your turn. Use the oil that we provided for you, but also be careful of that floor. Make sure you use a tissue if you can. Now check out how to change your front tyre for your 2 different braking mechanisms.
Okay, so now we're going to show you how to take off a front wheel from a bike with the V-brake system. So the first thing we do is we want to release the brakes. So we squeeze the 2 V-brakes together, unclip this little lead pipe. The brakes have now come apart, and that allows us to drop the tyre through without rubbing off the brakes as the tyre drops out of the frame. Next thing we do, we open the lever. The wheel still can't fall through, because most modern bikes have a safety catch that won't leave the wheel fall out. So we have to unscrew the far off side 4 or 5 turns, and now the wheel will come through the frame. And so to put the wheel back on, we're keeping the bike nice and upright, the wheel is nice and straight. I roll the wheel back into the fork, and I'm lining up the forks to drop down back over the axle. That's nice and straight. I hold this lever and I tighten this guy a few turns until this lever on this side, the locking side, closes with a little bit of resistance. Nothing there yet. Another couple of turns on the far side. That closes with a little bit of force, and that's the lever and the wheel closed back in. And now the next thing we do is we want to close back in the brake system. So just pop the little lead pipe into the little recess. There we go. And those brakes are back working again. Okay, so now we're going to remove the front wheel off a bike with the disc brake system. So open the lever like we've done with the other systems. Again, we must go to the far side and unthread the small little skewer head 4 or 5 revolutions, and now the wheel will just drop straight through, and that's off. Putting the wheel back on is fairly straightforward. You're rolling the wheel in, keeping the wheel on the floor, rolling the wheel in, and leaving the forks line up on the axle, but also the disc rotor must line up into the caliper as well. So they both self-align at the same time. It just means you've got to keep everything nice and straight. The wheel is straight and the frame is straight, and they'll both line themselves up. And then we go back and we just close this little lever. Again, not enough resistance, too easy. Another couple of turns on this side until that lever closes with that little bit of force. Just make sure it's closed nice and firm, and that's it. That's that brake system redone. The only small trick to learn with the disc brake system is when the wheel is removed, try not to pull the brake system with the wheel gone, because the discs have nothing to rebound off of and they're liable to close back in, and had to close in if the lever is pulled with the wheel not in place. If that does happen, a flat screwdriver gently pries them back open and they will come back out again as they should.
Pick a partner, seal your braking mechanism on that bike, and change that front wheel. Best of luck. Now Dave will go through how to change your rear wheel effectively.
So for the back wheel, it's a lot of the same process as the front. We're going to release the brakes as we did earlier on the front wheel. The next step we do, and it's an important one, is we must drop the bike into the smallest cog on the back wheel. So change gears a few times until the chain drops onto the smallest or the hardest gear on the back. That's what it's in there now. And now we can open the lever. With the back wheel, there's no need to unscrew the far off side. Once I open that lever, this wheel will now just drop straight out. Okay, and now to put this wheel back on, again, keep the bike nice and straight, keep the tyre nice and upright, roll the wheel in. The chain must go under, the bottom part of the chain must go under the cassette, and the top part must rest on the cog that we used to take it off. So it must go back onto the smallest one on the back. And then that's our template for the gears to fall back into place. And then we close the lever and that's back working again. Parts, like earlier, we just want to bring the two brake pieces together and rehook in our little lead pipe, and our back brakes are now reconnected.
Again, pick a partner, change that rear wheel, see how efficiently and effectively you can do it, and your teacher sees this, and we will pause. Now this is a 4-minute video, really important. You have the tools, so just have watch and learn, and we'll have a go in 4 minutes.
Okay, so for this part of the program, we're going to show you how to change a tube on the front wheel. So the tools you will need, we'll have your mini pump, we'll have your tube and the tire levers. So first thing we'll do, we'll open up the brakes, open those apart, open our lever, untread this side until the wheel drops through the frame, which it has done. Now we'll take off our little dust cover. We'll pretend we got it flat, so let's leave the air out of this tube. Take off the little threaded valve collar. So before we even use our tire levers, a good trick is to use our thumbs and push the tire back in away from the rim, just in case the tire has gotten stuck to the rim from being on the bike for quite a while. And we do that on both sides. It just makes the tire nice and free, and it'll give us then a bit of extra space to get our tire levers in underneath. So that tire now is nice and loose, nice and free from doing that. We get our tire levers, we move a little bit away from the valve and just get one tire lever, get it under one side of the tire only, get in like that, move maybe the width of 2 spokes away, get the next tire lever in and prise him open. We've got that much out over the tire, or over the rim. Now we move along only 1 spoke length to the next fella, and we just get him again, and 1 more at a time. What doesn't work is to have 1 lever here and the next lever over here. You got too much tire you're trying to remove at the same time and it won't work. Best to do it in small steps until the tire releases from the rim, which it has done now. I can feel that tire is released, and now it can come off the rim on one side only, all the way around. Right back to the valve. We'll take the tube out. One side of the tire can stay in place on the rim. We only have to remove one side. Peel back the tire, and that tube has been taken out. So we'll assume this is a bad tube. Next thing we've got to do is check the tire hasn't got any glass or thorns inside. Very carefully, you have to run your fingers slowly inside the tire to check for any glass or thorns or sharp stones that might have caused the puncture in the first place. Now this can only run slowly because there may well be at times a piece of glass in that tire that will cut you if you do it too quickly. So you really have to do it slowly and look at the tire as you're doing it. In case you see something on the tire, you can stop before you get to it, just to be sure. So if there's nothing in that tire is good. We can now put our tube back in. Now one little trick is a tube will always go back into the tyre a lot easier when there's air in the tube. So bear in mind, if I was to take my new tube out of the box, tubes from manufacturer will be vacuum packed. They're absolutely flat with no air in them at all. That tube is very difficult to put into a tyre until you put 2 or 3 pumps of air in to give it some shape. So if I just give that a couple of small pumps, there we go. Once it's got a little bit of shape at all like that, it will go back into the tyre a lot easier than the vacuum packed tube straight from the box. So I'll leave this tube to one side and we'll go back to the original tube, which has that bit of air still in there. We'll get our wheel, we'll go to the valve and we'll pop it in. Put one side of the tyre back out over the tube, and now because the tube has some shape, we're going to feed the tube back in over the rim. Slowly, just feed it in, and because it's got some air in it, it shouldn't really be falling out behind you. Whereas if it was flat from vacuum, it would fall out as we're moving along. So you'll be chasing yourself around for forever trying to get that tube to stay in. And now we're back to the valve. We flick in the tyre over the valve and work away from the valve. And we get to a point where a little bit of resistance starts to occur. Around there, we can see now that line doesn't really want to go much further. So now we go back and use our levers. So we'll put one hand here, and let's get the lever and just flick the tyre over, move along a small bit, move over again. If it's actually a bit super tight, we can have one lever holding the tyre here, and the second lever can feed it from the other side, but only small amounts. Don't go straight to the centre, go for the outside edges and just flick the tyre on bit by bit, and eventually it just fall back into place. And that's a tube fitted. All I've got to do is put the pump back on and re-inflate, and that's a tube fitted to a bike. So if you wanted to check what your correct tube size is, it will always be printed on the side of the tyre. And the first number you'll see will be 24 or 26, which is the circumference, and the next number is the width. So that should be on the side of your tyre, and that'll help you to work out what your tube size is. And the next thing to check is what type of valve you have, whether it's the narrow valve, which is called Presta, or the wide valve, which is called Schrader. Our tube, you can see that this wheel was 24, this tube was 26, so they were not going to match. Even though the valve is correct, that's the picture of the right valve, the 26 will mean this tube is for a bigger wheel size. So the tube has to be fairly well correct to fit back into those tyres.
And just a final thing, to see other bits of your bike that need maintaining, Dave will tell you what needs to happen. Hope you enjoyed it.
So as an overview, there are some items that we haven't looked at today, and I think from a safety perspective, we haven't looked at brakes. Got some of these brake systems with the hydraulic system on the disc brakes, they can be a bit technical, and some items like that could be safer to bring to your local store for tuning, and not something that you might tackle yourself at home. And the same with gear tuning. There's a lot of delicate adjustments on parts of the gear system, adjusting screws and cable tension, and it needs some fine tuning, and if they weren't done correctly, it could cause more problems. So the gears and brakes I feel safer probably doing through a proper bike store. What is a good tip is keeping your tyres pumped hard. Not mean pump them up maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks. If your tyres are pumped correctly, even maybe a little bit harder than this, I can still put my thumb into that tyre. If the tyres are pumped correctly, the bike will roll more freely because you have less tyre contact with the road, so it will roll more freely, and you'll have less chance of picking up a thorn or piece of glass, so you got much less chance of picking up a puncture. So good firm tyres helps the bike roll and helps save on punctures.